I would like to teach us very quickly the Good Job song while our panelists are joining us on stage. So our panelists who will be coming for the digital disruption session, if you all can start to make your way to the stage, you're welcome to come and sit. All right, this Good Job song, it's really easy. I think everyone is great at spelling. All right, so we're going to try this together. We're just going to spell the words good job, and then we're going to clap 2 times between each spelling. So I'll model it first. We're going to say good job, good job. Now clap 2 times with me. Good job, good job. Now we're going to spell it, and between each letter, we'll have a clap. G-O-O-D-J-O-B. Good job, good job. Y'all got it? Okay, I'll go even slower, okay? Because the goal is by the end of today, we'll be able to do like the rhythm that the young people like, all right? So, good job, good job. Good job, good job. G-O-O-D-J-O-B. Good job, good job. You know you did a great job. That was amazing. All right, we're going to be inviting our panelists. I would like to invite our session moderator, Dr. Natanya Wachtel. What, is that pronouncing? Okay. Now, listen, we want to build community, so correct us if we need to work on our pronunciation. Also, our esteemed speakers today, we have Warrick in the building, Torrey Davis, and Peter Dubrule. Warrick is a co-founder and CEO of Reju. Then we have Dr. Natanya, who is the founder of New Solutions Network and co-founder of Evermore. Torrey Davis, wave to us. The CEO and president of Davis IOP Consulting, LLC. And Peter Dubrule, give us a nice fist up, something. All right. Founder and CEO of PDI's educator and professional speaker. Today, they will be discussing collectively digital disruption. Can digital tools change behavior? With the development of digital tools, the healthcare industry has witnessed a paradigm shift in how individuals interact with healthcare services. The speakers will share their insights, their research findings, and real-world experiences in this panel discussion, which we're really excited to hear from. We will have an opportunity for questions at the end, so just cue us in and we'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll get to Mike.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Malika. Hello, everyone.
Okay, so my name.
Am I good? Okay. Sorry, because I have my own mic here. Well, welcome. As one of the organizers of the event, I just want to extend a personal welcome to all of you and thank you for coming to this momentous inaugural occasion. And as the acronym suggests, for HEAL, we're here to heal not only as individuals, right, but we're here to help talk about how we heal whole systems, right, whole communities and things like that. And one of the areas of popular conversation, right, is we're going to talk a lot today about tech in all different ways. And AI, and so this panel here is a very, very exciting group of folks to me, very different backgrounds coming together to talk about disruption. And anytime something is new and disrupts the ways of working, there's often a bit of an adjustment period and a shift in terms of mindset and technology that needs to match. So just for a moment, I'll also say I'm the founder of New Solutions Network and a digital tool called Evermore, which is a mental wellness app for Gen Z. And we're trying to kind of flip the script on how diagnostics in mental health works and leverage game theory, as Brian was showing at the end of his, to get young people to be able to communicate in a way that lifts others up rather than tears them down in sort of the traditional social media as we know today. So with that, I would like to welcome and introduce my panel here, starting with Aaron. If you could say a couple words about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Warrick. I'm a Philadelphia native, control system engineer and mental health advocate. I am the co-founder and CEO of Reju. Reju is a mental health and wellness platform that serves as a personal guide to mental, physical, and emotional success. We provide point-to-point therapy connections, really bridging the gap between our end users and licensed practitioners. We're encouraging people to live their best lives by equipping them with bite-sized pieces of wisdom, guidance, and inspiration, while utilizing AI and preventative care to provide a personalized wellness experience to amplify outcomes for individuals. So Reju is something anyone can utilize. You can download it on your phone, and it could be implemented in any ecosystem. We work in higher education, workforce development, sports and fitness, senior care, and looking to position ourselves in other industries as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Peter, Torrey, if you want to go next.
Okay. I'm Torrey Davis. I'm from Augusta, Georgia area. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with that space, but that's where the Masters is held. So I'm sure y'all know about that. But I've been in the space of human resources and industrial organizational psychology for about 15 years. And I have a huge focus on wellness, so I'm also a corporate certified wellness specialist. I hold that certification for that. So I can create wellness programs for all companies all over the world. I enjoy doing it. It's a fun and wonderful experience. And I love to focus on strategy. So a lot of things that you'll hear me talk about today with digital disruption will actually come from a strategy standpoint of how organizations, the educational institution, healthcare can try to work on implementing digital technology with as little disruption as possible.
Awesome, thank you. And Peter, sorry, last but not least.
Good morning. I'm Peter Dubrule. I'm from El Paso, Texas. I've been a high school educator for 27 years, and
Yeah.
thank
That
you.
is a fun.
Coach, I was a varsity assistant football coach for a little more than 10 of those years, and a head baseball coach for 15 years. I teach in whenever the school needs English literature at every level, but I've taught professional communications, communication applications, speech, public speaking, all forms of communications for 27 years. In 2013, I stopped coaching and started creating an app called PDI's Practice, Prepare, Discipline, Dedication to the work ethic of preparing a speech like you're going to see today. And the purpose of it was to work with the students that are not naturally great speakers. And that's more than 90% of us in here. So I have a class of 40, my class average is 35 to 45. I might have one or two students that are great speakers. The rest are scared, nervous, and fearful to get up here and speak correctly, to speak confidently. And PDIs is a free app for my students, for anyone. It's been downloaded in 7 different countries. It's only been out almost 3 years. It's in its infancy, but primarily it's for my students so that I'm with them in their bedroom saying, eyes up, you're reading. It's interactive, and it's a game that they can use at home and practice and have somebody there to tell them, hey, you're reading too much. So that's a little bit about me. Did talk about digital disruption. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, we're going to start with some softballs. We're going to start with some definitions, right, about what is digital disruption and your perspective. And I'll just start really quickly by saying I came from working, not 37 years, but a couple decades in the pharmaceutical space, and saw an increase from using digital as a way of mass communications, right? Email, e-blast, text messages, things like that, into digital therapeutics and diagnostics that are now even FDA recommended and approved. So now you go to the clinician and you can actually get a recommendation for an app for your depression or your alcohol use disorder or something like that. So there's many, many tools and such that have kind of hit a lot of these benchmarks that perhaps 10 years ago we thought would never happen. So we have a lot of great examples in different ways, whether they're in home and out of home. But I was wondering if we could start with you, Torrey, and talk about how would you define digital disruption landscape right now?
All right, so for me, I have that IO psychology background. So when I hear the word disruption, and I think automatically of something potentially negative. When we hear that word, we're thinking of something that's going to disrupt our lives or make a drastic change in everything that's going on. So I like to actually define it more as a digital shift. When we talk about shifting, we're talking about maybe a change in our mindset, not something that's upsetting our mindset or upsetting things around us. So number one, I like to define it as a digital shift. Number two, Ryan, you kind of touched on it earlier about how to get to the boardrooms and actually make them bite on what you're saying. And a lot of times, if we're going to look at a digital disruption, we have to look at how we pitch to organizations, right? So we want to look at, are we actually aligning with their mission and their vision? And how do we infuse and explain our technology so that it does? We want to talk about our technology in the space of how does it align with their corporate structure? So, Malika, you mentioned earlier about we're still doing the same type of work, the same way after the pandemic. After we've implemented all these digital tools, the work hasn't changed. Okay, we turned around and tried to make the work fit into the digital tool, okay, and instead of saying, okay, we have this digital tool, now how do we rethink how we do our work? So from a system standpoint, we also want to make sure that we're communicating to organizations how our apps, how our digital tools can function with their current systems and change how they do work and maybe implement new types of systems that can propel, wellness in organizations. And lastly, Pete's going to talk about this when we're talking about digital citizenship. That is a huge issue right now from a social perspective and an organizational perspective. So I want to pass that topic to Pete to really talk about digital citizenship and how we can be more aware of how we're utilizing this technology.
Okay. I'm going to first sort of define, from an educator standpoint, my idea of digital disruption, because Torrey's exactly right when he's talking about the negative connotation, sort of like criticism. When we hear the word criticism, we automatically think of it being negative, and it's our job, our responsibility to recognize if it's constructive or destructive. Digital disruption is any type of innovation, technological innovation, that creates change, like Torrey said, in some sort of system or even behavior. That's my idea, is how it changes us to act. I'll give you a great example. And I thought about this a long time because I was thinking, how am I going to connect with the people sitting in the audience? And for me, I thought of my paycheck. I'm sort of old, and I remember when I used to get a paycheck printed all the time, and I could see my money, every single dollar, where it was going. What tax is this? And why am I paying enough into my retirement? I saw that on a weekly, on a bi-weekly, or a monthly. When we got digital deposits, we lost that. And we don't even look at our paychecks. You know what we look at? We look at how much money is in my account. That's it. And I just have a young child in college who just got a job. And I had to sit down with him and teach him and tell him, look, this is your responsibility. And that gets us into digital citizenship. It's our responsibility as adults, as educators, as parents, that we have to teach the responsibility of being on social media. For us as an educator, we go over about a week of digital citizenship. It's funny because I just came from Orlando. I did. I'm from Texas. I've never been to Orlando, so we had to do the Kennedy Space Center thing and watch the rockets. And we had to leave, Thursday. They actually had a launch, I think last night or this morning. We missed that, and we went to Universal, and in the morning they had a commercial, and it was a young kid. You didn't see the kid, and it said, "Mom and Dad, please respect." I don't know if they play that here in Tampa, but it said, "Please respect my online integrity." And it had parents posting pictures of their kids and how AI is allowing people to change identity and security. And these are things that, for me as an educator, I have to teach these young adults: respect, bullying, individual responsibility, choice of language, things like that, because they're leaving a digital footprint. And pretty soon, universities scholarships, jobs are going to be asking them, what is your social media account? I'm not going to share that with you. Well, then you don't need to work here. And it's, it's leading into that direction. We've already seen athletes on Twitter losing their scholarships. So for us, we have to really, when we look at digital disruption, it's a good thing and it's also a bad thing. And it's our responsibility to educate. And I'll lean it over to Aaron to talk about behaviors.
Sure, absolutely. Both great points. As a startup co-founder, I'm going to take a bit of a different position. So I believe digital disruption is when changes occur in the industry, right? And these changes affect value proposition of existing goods and services and business models to kind of create new innovative solutions. When it comes to me, I like to think of it as, and this may be me being naive, I am a bit young, but I wasn't that young to not receive a paper check. But
So you're in the club.
I'm in the club. But I like to call it digital adoption, right? We hear AI, we hear predictive analytics, machine learning, and it scares a lot of people. And I love what you said is, we're fitting ourselves into the technology, but how do we fit the technology into our lives? So I like to think of how do we utilize technology to really advance current standards, push the industry forward, challenge old methods, old ideals, and really create new ones that we can continue to build off of. So I'm gonna be very quick, but that's just my thought of digital disruption.
That's awesome. Actually, you can start off again, Aaron, because next we're going to talk about how certain applications can impact organizational spend. So we think of sort of high-ticket items like surgical interventions, but also now with the advent of connected devices and people getting more care and telehealth out of their home. Obviously, COVID exacerbated that adoption rate considerably. And thinking about sort of what are some of these shifts in this shift from sort of more personalized and even intergenerational, right? We used to see utilization maps of folks, let's say, with all due respect here, I'll say 55 plus or 65 plus in the boomer or silent generation, not necessarily being high adopters. But in COVID, that really flipped the switch, right? And so it's grown exponentially. So we have folks at all levels managing their care from home and or, long-term care facilities, things like that, teaching hospitals, organizations, and the like. So lots of organizations, whether they be corporate, involved in wellness, digital tools of their own, and or within the industry, there's been a lot of shift, and would like your perspective on some of that.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's been a very interesting shift. So I'm going to speak from my point of view. So Reju, we have worked closely in higher education and workforce development. And one thing we've learned within our experience is that many students, 37% of students, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, have reported academic stress, has some impact in their academic performance, low grades, depression, and even dropouts. Counselors are overwhelmed in these academic settings. For every one counselor, there's a ratio for one counselor for every 1,000 to 2,000 students, right? So counselors are overwhelmed, students are stressed out, and that ultimately impacts the academic trajectory of the organization. So when you get digital tools like yours or like Reju, is to say, hey, how can we come in this particular situation and help already advance the resources that you have? If you take it a step further in workforce development, I'm sure we all demonstrated work stress. I know I have. And having a mental health app, people think, oh, you're supposed to always be happy, but work is work, right? 43% of individuals who are work stressed are less engaged and, ultimately can lead to turnover, can lead to dropout, can lead to poor performance at work. The U.S. Job industry are losing almost $300 billion in losses due to absenteeism, due to impaired operations, due to lack of performance at work. So having these digital tools to really amplify that, I think, can be very useful in particular situations.
Excellent. Torrey, did you want to expound upon that a little bit?
Certainly. So looking at the impact to digital tools, the impact on organizations with digital tools and the trends that are out there, 66% of employees at roughly any organization feel the employer has a responsibility for their health care. Just let that sink in. That's a lot, 66%. So when we talk about the impact of digital tools, communication becomes very critical in how those digital tools are actually utilized and if people actually participate in those, in utilizing those tools. How many of you have seen the show Big Brother? Come on, don't be shy, raise your hands. All right, I've seen it, okay? And so what you encounter a lot with digital tools from an organizational standpoint is that Big Brother is watching. So is my data gonna be safe, or are they gonna turn around and use what I put into this tool against me? So first, developing a robust communication strategy, explaining HIPAA laws, explaining that you cannot, that as an organization, we cannot use your information against you. We get information in aggregate. I do that a lot with organizations that I work with. And my participation rate generally is around 66, 70% with digital tools because they understand that we're not here to collect any data that we're going to use against you. But then also that means as an organization, you have to walk the walk, right? You can't turn around and do that. And then you have to produce different solution sets based on that data that are actually going to help the employees of your organization be able to live a better and healthier life. I also like to talk about motivation. So for you educators out there, if you're a college professor, I teach at the University of Purdue, so I love a little bit of theory. So I like to include some theory in the practitionership. So I use self-determination theory. How many of you heard of that? All right, so Ryan and Desi. Okay. So self-determination theory deals with autonomy at the highest level, autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And I've used those three pillars when talking about digital disruption and utilizing digital tools to minimize disruption. Autonomy means that you have choice. Okay, you have the ability to make a decision. So if you're offering a program or a digital tool that only provides a one-size-fits-all solution, you're already failing. Okay, so you have to provide some type of choice and decision for your participants to make. Competence, do they actually understand what the app or tool is used for, how to use it, how to access it? I mean, that's a whole conversation in itself of having access to certain things. So competence is a key area. And then relatedness. How many of us been in high school? I don't want to go to the mall, but my friends are going to the mall. So what do?
You go to the mall.
You go to the mall, right? So that's what relatedness is. So if my coworkers are doing it, then I'm more likely going to do it too, especially if it impacts the same type of things that are going on in my life. So having those three areas communicated and focusing on that when you're talking about implementing a digital tool, the impact to the organization, and then looking at what trends you can gather from the data, using autonomy, competence, and relatedness kind of as your foundational pillars can really help drive the utilization of your digital tool. I also like to talk about it from with the autonomy, competence, and relatedness that drives behavior, right? And we were talking about earlier, how do we get behavior to actually take root? Well, for me, and there's many different aspects out there, motivation is number one. If you're not motivated to do something, why is your behavior going to change? And then if you don't feel like you have choice, if you feel like you're the only one that's out there doing a certain thing, you might feel discouraged. So utilizing those three pillars with your digital tools and then incorporating that and infusing that into your culture of your organization, you'll be able to drive a higher yield of utilization for any of your digital applications.
Thank you so much. So I think with that, there was a couple really interesting points I want to pull out for a moment, and then I'll kick it over to you, Peter, and they have to do with some things you said at the beginning in terms of trust, right? So we talked about a lot of the levers that are, in health behavioral psychology and health psychology around what does it take to come to a behavior, adopt it, and make it your own as a new pattern of your new way of being, right? And so motivation is obviously a big part of it, but also you spoke about that initial trust and that trust in AI or trust in tech and that barrier or that chasm that sometimes has to be crossed. So another thing for organizations obviously is to set up, and we did speak about this, what is going to happen to my data? Who's going to see it? What can I do? Because ultimately most of these behavioral change programs require some introspection, some, let's say, recalibration of our sense of what the story that we tell ourselves about who we are and what we can do and what we can be. And so, I think one of the things I love about working with younger folks is that they are open to that. They are open to shifting, I am this, I am that, and how they define themselves with a more open-ended possibility development lens. And I think that's the thing that you have to sort of marry when you get up to the line of introducing a new tool, is balancing those barriers before they start so that people can let their guard down a little bit. And then, like I said, the older you get, sort of the more hand-holding perhaps you need to go to make sure that they feel that you will be a steward of that vulnerability that they're kind of putting in your digital anonymous hands, right? So with that, I was wondering, Peter, if you wanted to add a little bit about how you would deal with people being open to sharing their personal information to get to that level of, the raw reset ultimately that happens when you have to do a behavior change.
One of the things after COVID happened was that our school district implemented a lot of social emotional learning activities in the beginning of school. So the first 10, in teachers' language, it's bell ringer, chant, things like that. Now, in the past 2 years, it's been social emotional learning exercises, 10 minutes right in the beginning. And sometimes it is about, for me being a communications teacher, it's a short sharing. How do you feel today? What's something you're looking forward to this weekend? Where you're getting them to share their emotions. I mean, culturally, in a lot of cultures, we don't do that. And, getting into a new time, we are trying to break those barriers. Just like being digitally disruptive, we're trying to be socially disruptive as well to share those types of things. And we do, our school district's doing different, providing us professional development to do that with students. I mean, in the past, that was a counselor's job. Our job was not supposed to do that. So, for older teachers, I can see it. It's difficult, especially because they're not used to that change. And they're used to just material, curriculum. And now we're being thrown into the realm of being open to social, emotional education. So that's interesting and disruptive in our educational field.
Absolutely. So looking at the time, I wanted to see if we had any questions about anything either that we spoke about or if you wanted to ask a question of anyone on the panel. This would be a good time for that. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Oh, you're going to get a microphone. We do this right. No, kidding.
I was just curious, what do you think is one of the big changes that is going to be coming around as the increasing digitization of our society that we haven't really anticipated yet? Like, what do you think is going to be one of the big changes we all have to grapple with that isn't yet obvious?
I have an answer to that. I mean, like a personal answer, if you want to think about it. I think one of them is that, actually we were talking about this last night, I think, that generationally, people looked to their clinician as the top of their health decision making, right? So I don't feel well, this is wrong with me, this is falling off, whatever the situation is, right? You go to your doctor and your doctor tells you A, B, C, and I'll do DEF blood test, and then you take, QRS medicine and go home. Maybe you had a spouse or a child who would look up things on WebMD, right, and look up your symptoms and decide if they agreed or not with the doctor and said, I saw another thing, but pretty much it was the clinician guiding the patient, and that was the end of it. I think now we've, as generations have gone by, we've sort of opened up. We have, Dr. Google helping us all look at everything that we're taking, thinking about taking, alternative theories, pharma medicines, all kinds of stuff, epigenetics, looking at everything from every system, every which way. And that's kind of another pool of influence, right, and sourcing. And now we're getting to a place where AI is becoming oftentimes the referrer, right? So it's not even a human or human in the loop. And I think that's that knife's edge that we're walking down, right? How much care, because we do feel that we need the tech to help supplement. When you have 4,000 cases per counselor, it's just, you're not going to get folks that help. So it's not to disintermediate the clinicians or providers, it's to supplement and support. We have actually FDA remote monitoring now, so clinicians can get paid for letting their patients use an app. But there is a level removed of that sort of human connection. And I think that's an area where we have to proceed with caution. That's why we have a lot of summits and groups about AI ethics and all of that, and integrity, and how do we, not only data privacy and being careful stewards there, but also in terms of decision making, a recommendation. Who does it come from, and what were those variables that came to that decision if a human didn't give it? So I think that's an area that I see is going to, come more and more into discussion and into hospital systems when they determine, let's say, what kind of testing they're going to order for you when you show up in the ER. It's already happening today, and I think it'll probably continue quite a bit.
I can add to that very briefly. Two things. One, so I sit down with my grandmother. I taught her how to use Netflix. She's on Amazon every day, and she's about 75 years old. She's learned to adopt technology over the years, so I think in the future we will start to see seniors kind of drive more into that digital space and adopting that and being more comfortable with that, because I've saw that firsthand. So I do think that will be one change. As an engineer, I have to think from a technical standpoint. As we talk about the IoT of things, and you mentioned integrating different systems, that's great, but when you do so, that can create single points of vulnerability and failures. So it's also getting ahead and say, hey, as we continue to integrate these different systems and bring them together, how do we identify points of failure? If something happens, it may collapse entire systems and impact a larger group of people. We've seen when Cash App was down, many people utilizing that, had no access to money, right? So I think of things like that as well moving forward.
So from a consultancy and wellness standpoint, I look at the insurance companies. How many of us really like our insurance company? How many of us really want to call our insurance company, right?
Apologies to any of you who represent one today.
But it's true. It's true. We get a little scared when we have to call the insurance company.
Or dread, right?
Yeah, or dread. We don't know what answer we're going to get. We don't know if we're going to get pushback. And the insurance company is just following protocols to protect themselves as well. Okay, but now you have insurance companies being more socially responsible. And I think that's going to be a huge trend. And they're offering healthcare apps, telehealth, teledoc. They're offering it through their platforms themselves. So that's a trend that I'm really starting to see in the working environment. And then comes with that is trust. Trusting that insurance company is going to be giving you the right apps and prescribing the right things to you, not out of self-interest, but of interest of you as an individual. So that's a huge trend that I see, and I see a lot of resistance to that in the workforce. Like, I don't want to talk to this insurance company because I don't know what they might do, when really they're just providing a service. So I see that coming down the pipeline heavily.
From an educator standpoint, I think with AI coming out and future technological disruption is just going to push old folks like myself and the boomers to utilize and have to use. I mean, there's probably still some of you, maybe not, but some of you there that are like, I'm not going to put that on my phone. I don't want to put my credit card on the phone. Or, talk about digital disruption. I went to Universal Studios and paid for my tickets online, got my order online, sat at the table, didn't even talk to someone because they brought my food online. I mean, I didn't have to deal with anybody. It was crazy. And get my dad to do that. The map of the park was online. My dad would have wanted the map in his hand because he wanted to see the whole park, not just scrolling through it. And maybe that's a learning thing. Some of us are design type learners. Some of us are kinesthetic learners. And we have to see that. But I think as time goes on, the disruption is going to be the adults having to do it. And, that's a big disruption technologically, is because our youth are the ones having to teach the adults to utilize it. I mean, especially social media.
And Pete, to piggyback off that organization that I consult with, they're actually seeing heavy pushback because prescriptions coming in the mail. We went to 100% mail order prescriptions for anything that is going to be used for like chronic use. So it's going to be a reoccurring prescription. Anything that's acute for sickness, then you can go to the pharmacy. But you would have thought we were telling them to sell their souls. It was crazy, the pushback that we got, and it's like you don't have to wait in line at the pharmacy. You're standing there. There's 4 people back there, but nobody's servicing you, right? So you don't have to wait in the line at the pharmacy. You don't have to use the gas to go there. You can stay home, order your prescription, get them in the mail. So in some cases, you can get your 9-day prescription and pay over $30. So you have a lot of benefits to it, but it was like pulling teeth, just trying to say, hey, we're going to allow you to get your prescriptions at home, and all you got to do is go to this app, click a few buttons, you're good to go. They were like, no. So.
Ryan, one last thing, I'm sorry. The great thing about this is there's never going to be snow days anymore. Think about it. It's like snow day, online day. Boom.
We have another question in the front.
Hello. Without getting too detailed, I have 3 children who are neurodivergent, definitely genetic. But I also have concerns as a parent and also someone in healthcare and a background in behaviorism of the trauma and the dopamine implications of technology with my 3 neurodivergent children. I heavily monitor it, having had behaviorism and psychology background prior to having children. But I am greatly concerned at the repercussions of where our world has gone from a tribal and family-centered mechanism to a I'm bullying someone in Peru concept. And I think that we create tools that are wonderful, right? Everything is a tool. We can use it for positive or negative. But I'm concerned about the digital, and I'm going to use the word disruption because it does have a negative connotation of our Gen Zs, and especially the increase of neurodivergent children using these mechanisms and what they will be leading in 30, 40, 50 years. Your ideas on that?
I think that's, first, thank you for sharing that. Me personally, so it's interesting because, when the whole pandemic happened, it was a pretty terrible time for all of us. And, I'm thinking after that has passed, the world is going to come together and sing Kumbaya. But it seemed like it's been much worse, right, as far as human interaction, having compassion for one another. So I do understand that. From a digital technology standpoint, I think social media companies and technology companies should have some type of accountability when it comes to how do we present data and content to individuals, right? Youth who use the applications such as social media are 2.7 times more likely to experience depression and anxiety, right? But I think it's also an accountability on us to say, hey, are we monitoring what they're watching, right? Because social media shows you your interests. It amplifies that. I love snowboard videos. If you go on my Instagram, that's all you'll see. And gym workouts. But it's also saying, hey, how do we hold ourselves accountable to make sure they're watching the necessary things, either through parental controls, through legislation that forces larger companies to kind of really control and monitor more positive content. But that's just my personal opinion on that.
I can add maybe one small piece too. I think, and this is not to discount neurodivergent or non-neurotypical folks, but across the spectrum of all the brains that have been studied in terms of the adoption of technology, we basically all have the Pavlovian, reward, hit and reward, hit and reward, right? That's why online games are, stupid as they are, so popular, right? And why we use often game theory in other kinds of application, maybe even secretly embedded in it, to sort of incentivize and motivate and bring you back to engage. That said, most of the data around youth mental health and tech isn't necessarily so specific about what application, game, or what have you that they're using. And Aaron's nodding his head. It's really just about the balance of how much of that time is being replaced by the things that you said. Engaging with other human beings in some way where there is an actual, organic conversation. And that could still be over technology, but to have that, how much, and I know there's a lot of hippies in the room, so you'll be cool with this, how much time you spend in nature, how much time you spend doing something perhaps with your hands of your own design, or making music, or what it is, but essentially it's really about that balance, because we can't fight the tech. So we have to learn to live with it and make sure we have those signals within, whether it's your scheduling, whether it's in your school organization to still allow kids to have recess, for example, even if it's for 15 minutes. And maybe even into upper grades, maybe they don't have to play kickball in high school, but maybe it can be more just about getting a few minutes to take a breath. And I know that even breath work is coming into the schools and things like that. So for me, it's more about finding and making systems that have accounted for a balance of this tech is here to stay. So we have to find how we wrap around it to be whole people.
Yeah. Also, time management. When you were speaking, that just kind of hit me, and I'm very big on time management. So helping youth understand how to manage their time, I think, is a lost art and a lost skill.
Lost skill, yeah.
Yes. Okay, because they will spend, especially if they're neurodivergent, right? They won't understand the amount of time that they may have spent on a device, and they may spend 3 or 4 hours and say, I've only been on it 40 minutes. So helping youth understand how to track their time. You can use technology to track your time by just simply setting a timer, okay? So that's one way and one aspect that I would look at as far as helping youth use technology, but yet understand that there are other things out there. There's nature, there's interacting with people, there are theme parks, right? It's nice to play a game, but go ride your roller coaster. How fun is that? So, put the technology down and understand how to manage your time.
I think, do we have time for one more question? Okay, I think we have one more.
Good morning. I'm Ed Suarez, Dr. Suarez. I have a doctorate in law and a doctorate in business. I just want to make a few comments, because I represent corporations, and I own 7 companies. First of all, I think it's cute that we think that information is secure. I think that's a cute comment.
It's adorable.
It's adorable. When I hear people say, no, our data is secure, I sit there and I cringe, because I see the other side of it that's not secure. And it's not secure with big and small companies. A lot of times people don't even realize the breaches occur. So I think that to sit there and say that, to enhance people with systems are secure, with all due respect, I think that's a fallacy. Number one. Number two, we have multiple generations that are now on the computer, to the point that we can't even communicate with one another. I'm not going to tell you how many times I've sat in a restaurant with my wife, who I've been married to, we've been with her since 15 years old, and when we have 35 years of marriage and 3 kids. I'll see a young couple at a restaurant, and they're both on their phones, and I will literally stand up. I will sit at their table. My wife says one of these days they're going to get shot, but that's okay. I will sit down at their table. I'll tell them, I want you to understand what's happening here. I don't know if you're brothers or sisters. I don't know if you're cousins or just friends. But if this is a date, I've been watching for 20 minutes, both of you on your phone. I tell the gentleman, that's a beautiful young lady in front of you. I think your phone should be down. You should be talking to that person. And then I said, there's a young lady, This seems like a pretty outstanding guy right now. That's probably why you're on the date. Maybe you should put your phone and get to know one another because you're not communicating. They're literally on their phone. That is not a date. You can do that from your own homes. So we're losing that. And to sit there and say, let's monitor the time that we're on our phones and on our computers is very difficult when the parents are spending just as much time because we're not even communicating with our own kids. We don't even know our own kids. Our kids are dealing with people all over the world. We don't even know what they're doing because it's all on the phone or all on a computer. So I find that, disturbing. And then let's go down the medical route. I think this is your, Aaron, this is your issue. In 2021, I came down with COVID. Was positive on the 5th. I was in the ICU on the 9th, almost died on the 20th, and was in the ICU for 3 months. I've lost 30% of my lungs. I have pulmonary fibrosis, and I won't add the other crap that's happened because of it. So when I sit here and I talk about medical information and communicating over the web, I want you to know that I'm part of a lung disease unit at Tampa General, right? Because in the future, I'll probably be a lung transplant candidate, okay? So I'm part of this unit, and they have this thing called MyChart, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about MyChart. I come from a family of 13 physicians, including my daughter, who's an MD here in Tampa. So to sit there and to think that by communicating in MyChart, we're going to have good medical care, I think you're in la-la land. What's happening is MyChart provides so much information to these physicians from so many different clinical perspectives, including drug testing and drug analyses and other diagnoses. They are so overwhelmed that sometimes I'm the one telling them, well, did you see this? What does that mean? And then they have to go look for it because there's so much information hitting them and because we're not having dialogue. Because, by the way, we get 15 minutes in schedule with our physicians because if you look at their medical schedules, they have a patient coming in every 15 minutes.
And they have to do their SOAP notes,
So
and there's more
explain to me how
administrative
how this is all going to help. I don't give a damn how many tools you give me. The reality is until we have a personal interaction between us and that individual, between us and our children, between us and our spouses, right? We're losing that. We don't know how to communicate anymore. So my whole deal is I am not, okay, I may look older, but I'm probably in the mid-level with all the rest of you here for the most part. I understand technology. At some point in time, we got to take that technology and just shut it down. Let's get back to the basics. Let's get back to this basic tackling and basic guards, right? Basic work. And let's just talk.
No, that's a great point. Thank you.
We've lost all of that ability.
Absolutely. We were actually talking about that yesterday when we were talking about how to convince people to take positive changes, right? And some of them are as simple as we're talking about indicators like that are sort of outside traditional clinical endpoints, right? So things like, did you say hello to a stranger today? Did you meet anyone and have a conversation with the person? Like basically trying to encourage and promote simple behaviors where there is some true human connection.
Explain this to me. Isn't that sad?
Yeah, oh no, I mean, I'm not saying yay.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
If I could springboard off that, 5 years ago in the state of Texas, professional communications was a required course. You had to take it to graduate from high school. And we teach social communication as well as different types of professional communication, presentation, interviewing, things like that. But we do teach conversational skills. 5 years ago, they changed that. Only if you are college prepared, going to college. Before that, I would say during the Bush era, No Child Left Behind, everybody was on a college route. So everyone had to take that class. Nowadays, I don't know how it is in any other states don't even require you to take a speech class, professional communication class, communication applications. So you have a lot of young adults getting into college, never taking speech until they're in college. My kids, one just graduated from college. 2 of them are in college. They're like, wow, Dad, I can't believe how many people are so afraid to give a speech in front of the class. And that's because they probably didn't take one in middle school or in high school. And you're right, the parents aren't conversing with them as much either.
Peter, let me tell you something. Growing up, let me tell you how I learned communications, problem solving, decision making, and conflict management.
Dinner time.
No. We'd have 10 kids in the neighborhood playing sports in the backyard.
Yes,
And then we'd get into a fight.
Yes, sir.
And one of our mothers would open the door and say, figure it out or you're all going home.
Yep.
Oh, that's what I do every weekend, yeah.
Nowadays, that occurs, the parents are calling lawyers just to decide how the kids are going to play.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, there's some old school people left, I think. But with that, I'm sorry, I got the signal that I have to wrap us up. So I thank you all, and
I would like to make a small comment.
Sure, sure.
Just a very small one. I'm Dr. Persson, and I'm the one from Scandinavia, so I had a long flight of 18 hours, and I listen carefully here. And I get a lot of questions because I'm assistant professor, transition to industry, been working in the corporate, some of them American corporate companies, and my hidden dream was to start my own company. And long story short, it was through a breakdown and et cetera, et cetera. No time for that. Short comment. I wouldn't be here today without the digital world. And I wouldn't be able to run my business. So it's very easy to get focused on the negative. Everything, and when I listen, I think about my parents. I'm so blessed because my parents are 90 plus. And it's not easy for them to survive in the digital world and using all the tools, but they stay positive. Because my dad said I survived the Second World War, so I'm quite sure I will survive the iPhone as well. Because he said when he listened to that, you know, where he was living, he could see the fires when the German bombs Berlin. And his grandpa said, kid, it's going to work out, it's going to be fine. The world has always been changing. And I think this is something that's important for me to mention. I'd just like to say it because I'm here in the United States and I answer so many questions about these digital tools. We will survive them. We will find a way. I wouldn't be here, and that would be sad.
Thank you so much.
One of the greatest quotes.
Wonderful.
One of the
Thank
greatest
you.
quotes that I read was, "Innovation is there to help us move forward. It's our job to figure it out."
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Torrey. Thank you, Dr. Natanya. Thank you, Peter, for your insight. And thank you for the tremendous comments and conversations. It's not our intention to cut it short. We want to invite a continued conversation next door where you have an opportunity to get some coffee, to take a mental health break, to go to the restroom, be your human self. We'll see you back here at 11:30, okay?